you for having me. I'm really delighted being part of this very great digital and international event, and I really do appreciate to have the opportunity to share our experiences from Magenta Telekom when it comes to Agile at work. Before jumping into the topic, I really want to highlight that it's our journey, it's our learnings, and it's really something that we figured out during the last couple of months during our process. And yes, we did already find a couple of answers, but there are still questions that are left. So we are still in the middle of the process and we are still learning day by day. But before talking about the Agile journey at Magenta Telekom, some words about myself and also about the company so that you get kind of a bit of a context. That's me. I'm within the company since 3 years. I joined coming from another telco provider in Austria. So I do have a couple of years of experience within the telecom industry. And what you can see here on the left side is what really makes me, or what's so to say my specific elements that I bring into the company. I'm very people focused, and that's also something that we have learned, that it's more or less the only success factor within Agile transformation. I'm the one who is really trying to bring execution down to earth, because the best concept doesn't bring any value to the business and to the customers if you are not able to execute them. And I think it's really, really key to be in dialogue within all the departments in the organization. All my experience is based on the theoretical part, so I did study international business administration in Vienna, and then I made an executive MBA in Berlin. But, and I think that's most important, it's also combined with practical experience in different companies and in different cultures. On a personal perspective, it's all about passion. So I'm very passionate about the things that we are doing, and we have heard it in the very nice introduction. So we are responsible for culture, for transformation, for learning, for employer branding, for employee experience, but also for the topic of health management, which is a specific topic or essential in times like these. I'm working locally in Vienna, but also international, as we are part of Deutsche Telekom Group, and this all together combines the thing that we are doing here. Talking about Magenta Telekom, just to give you a brief overview, and that's the only slide that I brought in regards to the company. We are having approximately 2,400 people in Austria. We do have over 5 million customers that are counting on us, so it's on mobile and on fixed telco services. We provide the essential infrastructure for Austria, so we are the ones who are really driving the digital future of Austria, and we are really investing a lot within the last couple of years. We are part of Deutsche Telekom Group, and that's the fact that I really want to highlight, because as you will see, the Agile journey that I'm talking about is the local Agile journey within Austria. But of course, it's linked to the Deutsche Telekom Group, because there are some elements and some guiding principles that we share across the whole world, in order to ensure that collaboration is also successful, not only on the local market, but also internationally as a group. I think that's it. To sum it up, it's about, we are a tech company. We are on the Austrian market, which is very, very intense and tough, as the market is pretty small. And that's also the reason why we decided to come or to start with the Agile journey. But what are we talking about when we at Magenta Telekom are talking about Agile? There are so many different definitions and statements on what is Agile and what is it not. And we kind of figured out a wording that fits to the culture of Magenta, and that fits also to the requirements that we are facing, or the challenges that we are facing right now. So for us, Agile means the ability to react fast and effectively to current challenges on the customer's needs. So for us, it's very important to have the customer in mind. and it's an approach that has to be holistic from our perspective. So together with the Deutsche Telekom Group, we did develop this Agile Compass, which you can see on the left corner of the slide. And we are convinced that we do have to have a good balance of all these dimensions that you can see on the Agile Compass in order to be successful. But why are we talking about agility? At the very, very beginning of introducing agile working, agile mindset within the organization, we had a lot of people who said, okay, is it just because it's new, it's a trend, it's fancy or whatever? But of course it's not. For us, it's very, very important to focus on 3 dimensions why business agility is for us the right answer. On the first hand, it's about the customers. It has to be the success or the effect that we are able to react fast on changing market dynamics and also customer needs. So we are focusing on the customer. But of course, it's also about the employees itself. So it's not only about customers, it's also about employee experience, because we are convinced that customer experience can be only met if you have employee experience within the company. So if we are working in an agile way, then we are also convinced that people will be motivated due to being empowered and being enabled to make their own decisions and to drive their topics. And especially in complex situations like we are facing it right now, we have seen that some of the old methods are not working anymore. So to make it a bit more concrete, we at Magenta Telekom, we are standing for the ultimate promise for the digital future of Austria. That's our vision, that's our aim, that's our purpose. So we are driving the digitalization of Austria. And in order to execute this promise that we have given to Austria, we know that we need agile development in order to be fast and have a fast time to market approach. We need user-centric methods in order also to simplify and digitalize the processes, because what we have seen in the past is that we have been in some areas very product-oriented. So we were also looking on what kind of features can we offer, what is possible from a technical perspective, what else could we add, but that leads to quite a long time to market share. So it's more or less not important what the technology is able to provide. Of course, that's the base, but it's about the fact, what does the customer need? We do need a solid foundation for really end-to-end responsibilities in order to create seamless customer experience. And that has been something very specific for us, because we had a very big merger in summer 2018. So former T-Mobile Austria bought former UPC Austria. So a mobile provider bought a cable provider. So we are still in the middle of a post-merger process. And as you can imagine, we had to have a look at all customer processes from the very beginning. So what we did in the last 2.5 years was we bought a new company, or we created a new company coming from 2 old ones. And this transformation or merger process was also the starting point for going agile and also going into an agile transformation. Of course, we wanted to increase our service quality and to reduce redundancies by a fail-fast approach. To be very honest, and you will see it on the slides later on, fail-fast is a very big challenge for us as we are in a corporate environment. That's something that we have not learned from the very beginning. So we really have to learn this new approach and have to get used to do experiments, to do pilots and things like that. And of course, it's, as I've mentioned it at the very beginning, it's about the process, and it has to be a continuous improvement step by step. When we started this discussion with our leadership team, and that's approximately the top 50 leaders within our company, we have seen that we have, or on the first side, it looked like we would have a very similar view on what agility is about. So we asked our leaders what they think it's about, and everyone is coming up with practices like Scrum, Kanban, sprints, and all these buzzwords they have heard. But having a look deeper and having had a couple of workshops with them, we have seen it's much more about the working agile. It's really about being agile, because only implementing instruments or new practices and working methods does not transform the company at all. You really need to have a basic as an agile mindset. So it's really about the mindset and the values that you are following, and the way you are behaving. And also agile principles are needed when it comes to collaboration. So it's much more. And the big summary for us was agile, it's really something that you are and not something that you do. And that was the first learning for us within Magenta Telekom, that this is the part, or this is the topic that we really have to work on, so that people are getting aware that it's not about instruments or working method, but it's really about a behavioral, about a cultural, and also a very big change in collaboration. As mentioned, we started with the leaders, and we came up with the picture that the whole transformation, no matter if you look at it on the merger perspective or if you look at it on the agile perspective, and to be honest, it's one transformation process, just having the view on it from two different angles, or the starting point from two different angles. But it was pretty obvious and pretty clear that we need leaders who act as a visionary and coach, who are sharing the power, and that we have to decouple the functional and the disciplinary responsibility. Showing this to our leaders, everyone said, oh yes, that's clear, that's totally fine. But then we had a look on it, and we really asked them, our top leaders, how much are you willing to give up? Because you can't go on an agile journey or on an agile transformation if leaders are not willing to give up something. Because if you really change the way of working, and if you also change the expectation towards leadership and towards the role of the disciplinary leaders, then it might get really tough. Because, and you know this, so we don't have to go through it in detail, but it was something that we shared with our employees or with our leaders in order to make them aware that if we start going on this journey, that this will affect their role, their responsibilities, and also their daily behavior. So it's really about empowering and coaching. It's about autonomy. It's about enabling the team, that the team is able to succeed. And it's pace over perfection. And to be honest, being part of a big corporation, pace over perfection is one of the biggest challenges. To make it a bit more concrete, we also discussed in several workshops with our leaders what does it mean in concrete or on a more detailed level. And that's the result which we have seen, or which we have derived together with our leaders. So it's about starting small, but starting, and especially if you come from a big organization like we are doing it, you're used to have PowerPoints with, 120 scenarios and things like that. So you're prepared for everything, and then it's something totally different. So now we really try to start with starting small, but having regular feedbacks, having interactive loops in order to learn from each other, and to be open for experiments. And it's okay if something fails, but that also has to be learned. It's about welcoming different perspectives. So diversity is getting more and more important, especially the more complex the world and the competition is becoming, the more diversity is needed. It's about sharing knowledge, which is especially difficult in expert organizations. So where knowing things and having a great and profound knowledge might be a starting adventure. It's about being radically transparent, and really transparent, so really showing the figures, showing the numbers, showing the results, showing the successes, but also showing the failures. It's about acting like being an entrepreneur, as mentioned, it's about the customer, of course, and it has to have this, being eager to improve in a sense of being eager to grow. And you have to find the balance between being creative and being pragmatic. And it's about really trusting and motivating people. So that was the very, very beginning of our journey. And we, from an HR perspective, we said we could start the journey, but only if you, as our leadership team, you are standing behind it and you're really driving this change with us. But of course, we can't do it with the leaders by themselves. So we need, our Agile needs a dynamic people model that ignites passion, performance, and growth. So what's very important for us, and we have heard it in the introduction today, it's all about learning. So we were asking what capabilities do we expect from our people in an agile environment. And of course, it's also about functional know-how, because these were the first things that came up from the leaders. But it's much more important to have really these capabilities and skills in regards to focusing on customer needs, being eager to collaborate, really cross-functional collaboration, international collaboration, and all these things. As you're all experts, we don't have to go through it in detail, but I just want to give you a glimpse on how we started our journey and what's the core beliefs in behind. So we really need leaders to push the transformation forward and to be kind of willing to give their power, to give their decision, to give their empowerment to the people. And on the other hand, we do need people who are willing to take over the control, who take over the responsibility. As mentioned, for us it's very important to have a holistic view on the topic of Agile. And within Deutsche Telekom, we came up with this Agile Compass, which consists out of 6 elements. And as you can see, it's about the people, it's about the org design, it's about leadership, governance, work environment, and the way of working. So we are convinced if you really want to be an agile company and if you want to have an agile transformation in a successful way, you have to work on all these 6 elements. But of course, we are not able to do all 6 by once and on the same time, because we also have to be aware that specific departments are on a different maturity level. So for example, we do have teams and departments which are already quite ahead when it comes to the way of working. So they have already implemented agile processes, agile routines, agile instruments. But we do have also teams who have never heard anything about it. So the maturity level across the company is quite different. And that's valid for all of the 6 elements. So at the very beginning, we came up with the great idea to have a very structured and very comprehensive analysis of the organization to find the kind of status quo. So where are we at the moment, where are our blind spots, etc. And we started it. And to be very honest, that was the first failure we did, because we started a huge analysis or a process, a project to have the analysis. So we started interviews with experts, with leaders. We derived quite a big questionnaire on how to find the way to find out where we are standing. And then we said, or we recognized that people are really getting frustrated by doing this theoretical part. So there was the moment of change. There was the moment where people were really willing to kick it off. And then we came around and had all this, we have to have an analysis and things like that. So what we did, we stopped it and we decided to go on an iterative process where we do step by step, having pilots after pilots, and see how the journey will develop. So we decided not to have a master plan, which is already, a project plan where you know what will happen within the next couple of months, but we decided to go with Agile experiments, because we said if we want to become an Agile company, then we have to do the way in an Agile manner, because otherwise we will fail anyway. And so we asked ourselves, when do we need agility? Is it really something that has to be implemented in the whole company, or are there teams, tasks, etc., where it makes sense to follow the more hierarchical or the waterfall principle, etc.? So we came up with this framework that pretty sure every one of you knows, but it gave quite a good orientation for us, especially for our leaders who have not been in contact with the topic of agility before. And we decided that we will do Agile experiments in the area of complex situations. So where we do have new challenges, new customer needs, where we don't know the answer yet, here we decided to have Agile pilots trying out agility on different levels, and then trying to learn on the way in order to scale in a second step. How does it look like? I brought some initiatives, and it's just an excerpt, but I brought some initiatives for you in order to give you an overview on what we did. And don't worry, I won't go through all them, but what I want to say and to show with this picture is that we decided to have 3 different types of initiatives. So the gray ones, these are more or less the overall topics. So these are infos and initiatives that come along or across the whole company in order to make people aware that agility is going to happen and that we start this Agile transformation. On the other hand, we implemented pilots. So these are, for example, the blue spots on the picture. So we really defined concrete tasks that we had to fulfill anyway, but we just decided to make it on an Agile way. And we built small teams who started to work in an Agile way. These pilots have been created or have been working Agile on different levels. So for example, the B2B tribe, which is seen here in the middle, was a total Agile team. So we started with an Agile setup. We fully dedicated the people into the tribe. There were new roles implemented, like a product owner, a tribe lead, and all these things. But on the other hand, we had, for example, the cross and upselling at the B2C area, which was a project that was already running. But here we only integrated Agile ways of working, like sprints, reviews, retros, etc. So what we did is we defined different topics, and we tried out different levels of agility in order to see what fits best for the environment of Magenta. And in addition, and that's the magenta colored items, in addition, we started enabling our people. So we started trainings, learning sessions, but also we started with a learning community, and we worked with our leaders. So what you can see is Agile Journey at Magenta is not one single initiative, one big bang, one town hall, one whatever. It's really a process where a lot of smaller and bigger elements come or are combined and lead to the process that we are facing right now. As mentioned, there are a lot of pitfalls, and we have learned a lot. The biggest pitfalls that we have seen at the beginning of the process are these ones. And they are not new, and probably every one of you who is in an Agile organization or in an Agile transformation process knows every single one of them. But the main difficulties that we have seen during the process is really the governance. It's about roadmap planning, it's about financing and purchasing processes, and it's about HR processes. So what we've seen is we had quite a good and solid implemented processes within Austria, but also within Deutsche Telekom as a group. And then coming across with Agile pilots really leads to lots of discussions and different interests. So here we really had to spend a lot of time in order to find workarounds, new governance models, etc., in order to have both worlds. So if you want to say the old one and the new one, or the more linear one and the agile one, or however you would like to call it, to have it next to each other. Because what we have seen is we are not at a level within the company that we would scale agile to the whole organization. So we are really having these two operating models in parallel at the moment. The next big difficulty or pitfall was the skill and the people planning. So we have seen that we are lacking of skills. So for example, we wanted to implement agile coaches, but we didn't have enough people who had already the skills. So we had to train them, and we had to hire external people who had already experience and brought it in. But it was also about organizational setting. So who is able to approve on the process side, but who is also having which kind of responsibilities. It's about leadership, and leadership especially in the sense of empowerment. So our leaders have been very keen on starting the journey, but then when they felt that, okay, I have to change myself and the way how I lead, then it's getting difficult. So leaders has to be supported as well. We had also difficulties and challenges with collaboration tools, especially when you start collaborating cross-functional and digital. You really need solid communication and collaboration tools. And of course, it's also, especially for us from the HR department, it's the role and the responsibility of HR. Because at the very beginning, it was more or less, HR is rolling out agile trainings, but it's not an HR topic. If you want to become agile, it's really a business topic, and it's really a cross-functional and holistic approach. And there are lots of more. But coming to the end, our biggest learnings are these ones. So it's about really start, even if you start small. It's about creating a common ground and foster learning. So you really need to have a common understanding what agility means for you and your company, and why are you implementing it. You need to find influencers and drivers to steer the transformation, especially at the beginning. And you have to insist on the board commitment, because you have the buy-in of the board, because otherwise it's really hard to solve discussions around governance, etc., etc. You have to find a way how you enable your people that they are willing to reflect and adapt, because it's really about changing your behavior, changing your way of collaboration. And you have to appreciate letting go of familiar past. And that's really one of the biggest things. You have to motivate your people. You have to give them a trustful environment so that they are able and enabled to letting go of old ways and old parts. But we have also seen it's very good and recommended to have external partners in the process, so that you get new and fresh perspectives and ideas, and so that also someone is there who reminds you if you're falling back to the old behaviors or blind spotters. And it's key that you have really a cross-functional collaboration between corporate functions like HR, strategy, all these functions, and the business and IT department as well. Because you will be only successful if these functions are really working closely integrated together, because it's not a single department is able to steer the transformation without having all the others input. So summing it up, it's really about employee experience. So it's about engaging your people into the journey and empowering them, and that's, from our perspective, the crucial for the success of such an agile transformation process. As mentioned, we are in the middle of the process. We are progressing pretty good, but of course, there are still challenges ahead, and we are already working on the next big steps. So we are in the middle of the process. We are not there yet, but we are really keen on pushing it forward, because what we have seen is, even if it might be difficult at the beginning or in between, it's worth it definitely, because it's really about customer, but also about people and employee experience. And these two facts lead to the company's success. So whenever we review the Agile journey, we know that even if it might be hard from time to time, we are on the right track. That are our learnings so far, and I'm really looking forward to your questions, remarks, feedback, additional input, whatever you want to share.